It's time to transition. It's time to transition into some deductions and to look at some more numbers, guys. And the first deduction I have after all of this data is the USHL is not equal to the CHL. The pipeline of Canadians to the USHL, the elite, the best, has stopped. None of the best are heading to the USHL from Canada. And the best Americans, many of them, are heading to the CHL. I talked, I think, earlier about a USHL coach who's on the road for the first time in a number of years actually recruiting, because he has to, because all the players are heading north, whether it be Northern America or Canada, right? Because the CHL has U.S. franchises, but it's very clear. And if you can put up the USHL screen, Lucas, it's a different tab, yeah. So I took the time to go through every USHL team and their rosters. And you'll take a look. I've got it sorted by birth year here with the 2006s all the way down to the 2010s. The 2010s are not going to play in the CHL this year, but they've already signed. Anybody in green has already signed a CHL, whether it be a Western Hockey League, Ontario League, or Quebec education and scholarship or development, whatever they call it, package. These are people that are actually going to the CHL. And you can see right at the very top, there's the USHL is losing players. And these are 06s. Yeah. These aren't the necessary, and you can see some of the comments to the side. I mean, these are players that have got good numbers in the USHL and are going to be good CHL players. And you know what? More than likely, they're going to end up being good NCAA players. And probably a couple of them are going to be good NHL players. But the fact is, when you take a look, and these are all Americans, okay, with the exception of the one that's highlighted who played in America, okay, in the USHL, who's a Canadian, he's highlighted in orange. All of these are Americans, guys. And you can see where they've committed to, like Ritter Coombs. You know, he was in Sioux Falls last year. He's in Erie. He's a commit for Providence in 26-27. Just go down the list. Guys, I wish I could be, like some of this data, I'm taking it from College Hockey Inc. I'm taking it from various websites. I'm taking it from the USHL website. I mean, Shattuck had a run of their prep players right to the CHL. You would never see that before. Yep. I mean, you'd see some of Shattuck's players, obviously their most famous is Sidney Crosby, head to the CHL, but the vast majority of them were heading to the NCAA. They may still be heading to the NCAA, but right now these players are saying, I'm going to do it through the CHL because the CHL is going to give me the best chance to be a National Hockey League player. Right now, it's best for my development. Is it all of the best American players? No, it's not. Okay? But it's a whole bunch of them. And by the way, it's a one-way track. None of the best CHL players are heading to the USHL. So any of this talk about the USHL being the fourth major junior league, stop it already. It's not. Okay? And why would, when all of this is happening, there was talk, months ago about the USHL playing for the Memorial Cup. Stop it already. They're not as good as the CHL. It's not even close. And the gap is going to get wider as we move on. So this is hard data, and it's growing. It's only June 25th. The CHL drafts just happened. A whole bunch of Americans, and we're going to show this in just a little bit, a whole bunch of Americans got drafted. When they start seeing their fellow Americans go to the CHL, they're going to go to the CHL. And it's just going to happen. And I would say, guys, I don't know how we're going to format this yet, but my guess is we're going to store this and update this on the Dan K website.
Yep.
And people will be able to follow along right there. So that's deduction number one. Let's go on to number two. And we just talked about it, the CHL drafts. The Western Hockey League in 24 drafted 52 Americans. They have two drafts. They have their regular draft where Americans can be drafted, and then they have a 2-round American draft. There was 52 drafted. This year there was 70 drafted. The Ontario Hockey League has one draft. It's typically just a 15-year-old draft, 15 rounds. In 2024, there were 34 Americans drafted. Okay, just you're sitting down, guys, right? 81 this year. Okay. The Quebec League, which has always had the tougher task of getting Americans because they have New England, and you're dealing with, in some cases, language where Americans would typically not want to go. And typically, the better players are playing at prep schools, and the path has always been to from prep school to maybe a year junior in the United States on to college hockey. Are they all going to play in the CHL? Nope. Okay. Very few of them are ever going to play in the NHL. But what the CHL is doing is they're saying, we're interested in you. We want you to come to us. And yes, there's going to be players that fall by the wayside. They never make a CHL team. Okay. Or they're cut halfway through their junior career and they end up in the BCHL or the North American League or the USHL or the GOJHL or the OJHL. Okay. But everybody is going to typically, I don't want to say everybody, a large swath of the best Americans are going to want to play in the CHL. And it's brilliant. The CHL has always been good at this. But they were really primed when the rule was changed. Lucas, you kept saying their narrative, they're controlling it. They're marketing to these players. Now they've drafted them. Now the teams own their rights. Now they can specifically hone in on just the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 Americans that they've drafted. And we'll see what happens. We do have an example of this. If you can go to the OHL draft from this year, Lucas, we talk about you can draft players, but are they ever going to report? Are they ever going to be good enough to make your team? The CHL, or in this case, the OHL, would typically never draft an American in the first 3 rounds of the OHL draft unless they were really sure that kid could play and he was going to report. And they went from 3 Americans drafted in the first 3 rounds in 2024 to, I think if you tally it up, there's 18 that are drafted this year. And you can see the players that are in green have already decided that I'm going to go from Mid-Fairfield or the Chicago Mission or the Chicago Reapers or the Rockets Hockey Club that you guys know and love, or Shattuck St. Mary's, or the Detroit Little Caesars, or Wilkes-Barre Scranton, which you guys know well, or another Shattuck, or another Shattuck. They're all going to the Ontario Hockey League. They've already signed to go play there. Now, some of these players that have not signed are going to the development team. One interesting one is Chris Bartsch's son, Kane, who was drafted by the Kitchener Rangers. He's probably going to play 2 years in with the development team. Maybe he'll play 1 year and go to the OHL. I could tell you every day that kid wakes up, the Kitchener Rangers are going to be knocking on his door. And oh, by the way, his dad now just got named the coach of the Niagara Ice Dogs of the Ontario Hockey League. And his dad, I mean, like, there's another one here. Trevor Daly Jr. You know where his kid played, where his father played? He played where we drafted him. The Sioux Greyhounds of the Ontario Hockey League. Who drafted Trevor Daly Jr.? Oh, the Sioux Greyhounds of the Ontario Hockey League. I wonder if the same Billet family is waiting there for Trevor Daly Jr.
Nepo baby.
So will these kids ever show up? I don't know. Here's an interesting one that was drafted in the third round, who's an '06, I believe, and you'll recognize the last name, Sakura, who played in the USHL last year as an '06. Okay? And Owen Sound drafted him as a guy who they believe can come right in and help him next year as an older player. I have no idea how good this player is. It's not my job anymore to scout these players, but it's my job to gather data as part of the Hockey 101 team. And I know if I didn't do this, I would be fined, okay?
And we only find Bob, too.
And probably sent to Canada where it's really cold in the wintertime rather than Florida. I'm just telling you, if you take a look underneath on this graph, you can see rounds 4 through 15 and the players that are signed. Gilmore Academy, Kent, okay? A big 6'6" winger from a high school in Cleveland that was just drafted, a.k.a. Mike Rupp, possibly another one who used to play at St. Ed's. Mount St. Charles, Little Caesars again. There'll be more of these players. Of those 81, way more are going to sign. The night that the draft happened in the Ontario Hockey League, and I happened to be up in Canada, and I went to go see Kitchener, I think it was, play against Windsor in the East semifinals. And they stopped on one of the stoppages of play. They put the spotlight in a private box. And who was in the private box? All of the draft picks that were taken by the Kitchener Rangers the week before. These people know how to run organizations, especially organizations like the Kitchener Rangers and the London Knights. Are they all the Kitchener Rangers and the London Knights in the Ontario Hockey League? No, there's not. No, they're not. There's good organizations and there's bad organizations. And another USHL coach told me today, as he's recruiting against the CHL, he's finding that it's easier to recruit against the weaker teams, who we shall not name here, than it is against Kitchener and London and some of the other better teams. So we're going to be following this. It's going to be on the website that you guys can tell everybody about later on. But deduction number 3 is the USHL is nowhere close to the CHL. Let's keep going, because this is my favorite part. CHL flips to the NCAA. Bring that graphic up, because we've been waiting for this forever. So we've been tracking the 2004 NHL draft. And this too will be on the Dan K website. Lucas, this is what we've been waiting for. The CHL flips to the NCAA. And there haven't been a lot. You see them up on your screen, but they continue to grow. And these are the players who were drafted last year in the National Hockey League draft who didn't sign entry-level contracts that would have voided their eligibility under the new rules, who now have switched over to the NCAA, and you can see what schools and leagues they're coming from and which schools they're going to. There will be some more from 2024. As high as, we've heard the rumors of Michael Misa, who could be going number 2. And a lot of people say he's not physically ready to play in the National Hockey League. And it would probably be his best interest there from a development standpoint, and certainly from a Zizic standpoint. So there's going to be some more. We'll find out. We're going to be following the 2025 draft that comes up shortly from LA. Some of the players that are in the CHL I've already switched over, and we'll have all of this data stored on the website, and it'll be updated. I don't want to say daily, but it'll be updated on a regular basis. But it'll be interesting to follow. So, just the difference between 24 and 25's NHL draft. The old rules were in play in 24. And so, what typically happened was all the CHL players signed entry level contracts, and now they're not eligible. What's going to be really interesting with the first round draft choices, because it's going to be a big time CHL win in the NHL draft this year. Are any of those kids going to flip after the draft? Okay. And what happens when they flip? Is there going to be a domino effect? Is there going to be a cool effect? I don't know. We're going to find out. But I don't think, because of nil money, that you're going to see the first rounders sign ELCs right away. Maybe we'll be proven wrong, but we'll see. And of course, the biggest news story is, where's Gavin McKenna going to end up? And you talk about narratives, guys. You guys will be watching the NHL draft. I'll be watching the NHL draft. If McKenna signs with, I don't know, I hear it's down to Penn State and Michigan State. If he does that as we're taping here on Wednesday or on air on Thursday, that's going to be the talk of the draft. And there's kids that are going to be drafted in the first round of the NHL draft this year that have already committed to leaving the CHL. Will there be more? And will that be the organic magic that we've been waiting for? It started. It's not enough. If you take a look at the 24 draft, the CHL is still dominating Europe. It's still dominating the NCAA. But is this the start of a flip? I don't know. We'll find out. But it's going to be interesting to watch.
We've talked about how hockey is a fickle sport. As the big names go, the medium names go, and once the medium names start to move, a lot of the little fishes will panic and try to follow in their footsteps. So then when we talk about things shaking out over the course of a couple of drafts, a couple of commitment cycles, that's kind of what we're getting at.
If it's just money that's grabbing these kids and there's not enough money to go around, maybe nobody goes. But I've always said, and I worked in the Ontario Hockey League, it doesn't matter where you play if you're going to make it to the National Hockey League. Pat Kane played in the OHL. He's an American. Canadian Jonathan Taves played in the NCAA at North Dakota. They both joined up at Chicago. They could have switched where they played. It wouldn't have mattered. They were going to make it to the National Hockey League. So if it doesn't matter where you play to make it to the National Hockey League, and there's only so few players that make it in any one birth year to the National Hockey League, like the number is 50, something like that make it, then education becomes really important. Okay? And if you take a look at the graduation rates over history in the CHL compared to the NCAA, one's at 90%. Yeah, they're schools, they're institutions. Okay, you got to go to school. Even if you weren't going to get your communications degree, you got to go to school. As opposed to one has basically always been a pro hockey league who has been bragging about their 20% graduation rate for 20 years. I mean, and kind of fooling people. Okay? Now they can just go to the NCAA. Oh, and by the way, I can go to the NCAA when I'm 19 years old or 18 years old, and I can play against bigger, stronger, faster people who are going to prepare me. So this is going to be really interesting. Will they go, if there's no money involved, and I'm not talking the age outs here, I'm talking the 18 and 19-year-olds, or will they stay in the CHL? I don't know. I don't have that answer. I don't know. But if they start flipping for little or no money because it's a better place to develop, then the CHL has a real problem. And I can tell you right now, the CHL is worried. They never thought when they executed their plan that they would lose any of these players. Or if they did, it would be very few. When you start talking Gavin McKenna, if he actually flips, or Michael Misa, who, by the way, they both could be the first overall picks in this year's draft and next year's draft. Certainly, Misa's going to probably be number 2. every other player in their birth year starts saying, maybe that's where I need to go. So it's we'll see. Lucas, I want you to take us to another draft another chart that we're going to be looking, which is the USA 09s. Guys, let's take a look at the most interesting group to watch, which is the American 2009 birth year. And I say it's the most interesting because they haven't really been touched yet. They're pure. They're not playing in the CHL or the NCAA. Most of them have not made commitments. Okay. And what we've done is we took Neutral Zone's top, I think it's 350. We mapped out all the players. You can see where they're ranked and where they played in the whole bit. And if you scroll over to the right, you can see 5 columns: the National Development Team, the USHL, the Ontario Hockey League, the Western Hockey League, and the Quebec League. And what I've done is I have listed who made the development team. So they're in green. They've made the commitment to the development team. And then you'll see Saginaw, for example. I can't see the player's name right now, but Saginaw drafted a player in the second round of the draft. They've already signed him. So if you take a look at Drew Roscoe, and if you can scroll over, you'll see he's one of the top-rated players in America. Okay. And he hasn't been drafted by anybody in the USHL. You know why? Because he already signed a contract with Saginaw in the CHL. So why would you draft him? Okay. As you scroll down, you'll see who's already in green signed with their CHL team or with their USHL team. Now, I have not touched the USHL, but I'm going to take a look at the Fort Myers player who Youngstown tendered and Kitchener drafted in the 8th round, right there. Okay. So Logan Anderson, okay, from the Florida Alliance team. It's going to be fascinating to watch these recruiting battles. Chicago tendered him. So what that means in their futures draft is they gave up their first round pick and got this player. Okay, they were able to tender him. So if you had really good recruiting in the USHL, it's a stupid way to do a draft. You could get every year, if you were the best, you could get the best 2 players. It's not a pure draft. Okay, you guys with me?
Yeah.
You just go and tender the guy. And if you wanted to pay him, you could pay him, right? I'm not saying that they're paying him, but you could do whatever you wanted. Okay, if you're the best. The London Knights, if you're allowed to tender in the Ontario Hockey League, the London Knights would always get the best 2 players in the Ontario Hockey League draft. So here we have a kid who's tendered. Okay, scroll over on Logan. There you go. He's tendered. Oh, Murray Gunty's team, who tried to get into the Ontario Hockey League. He's tendered in Youngstown. And one of the best teams in the Ontario Hockey League drafted him in the 8th round. Okay? So it'll be interesting. Where does the kid end up this year? Is he in Kitchener or is he in Youngstown? But here's the other interesting thing. Let's say he goes to Youngstown. We already know that everybody's going to the CHL. By the way, watch the import draft. You're going to see a whole bunch of USHL players who were in the USHL last year are going to the CHL. Does he go to Kitchener in year 2? It's going to be fun to watch all of this go down. Take a look just under him, 2 under him. Lincoln drafted in the 2nd round and Peterborough drafted in the 2nd round. Oh, a Shattuck St. Mary's player. Didn't we just talk about a whole bunch of Shattuck St. Mary's players going to the Ontario Hockey League? Let's see who wins that recruiting battle. So it's let's see if anybody leaves. Let's see if anybody scroll right up to the top. And you've got a player who Quebec drafted, the Ramparts drafted in the 1st round, who's the best player in America according to Neutral Zone. He's playing on the development team. Carter Meyer, is he going to spend 1 year with the development team and then go to Quebec? What an interesting 2-year project. You're going to find a lot out over this summer because a lot of these players aren't ready to play at that level. But if they signed a contract, they're going to do it. We've already shown the USHL guys they're getting killed. The big question, and we're kind of wrapping up here, is nil. We still don't know about nil, guys. There's a lot of unanswered questions. We're going to see who signs nil deals or who waits for nil deals. We're going to see what happens with the NHL draft, as we talked about on Friday and Saturday. We're going to hear some great rumors. It's going to be the best for rumors. We're going to hear a kid from ABC CHL team who we hear is going to be drafted or was just drafted 11th overall, and he's leaving the CHL to go to the NCAA. That's the stuff that's going to be really interesting. And we're going to wrap it up with my part of it with the U.S. National Development Team Program. If the USHL is going to go down in quality, what does that do for the national team? If you recall, many years ago in 2005, when the North American League was going down and CompuWare had left, okay, the development team left. What happens now? Do all the players just go to the CHL? Does the development team try to get into the Ontario Hockey League? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of I talked to an NHL coach who's very familiar with the development team from years gone by. He says the development team's in big trouble. Because what's going to happen there, guys, from a domino standpoint, the first time one of their top 10 players ends up going to the CHL, more are going to go. And then once they start going, if they start going, good luck recruiting for next year's team because they're going to go to the CHL. The development team's in big jeopardy here, guys. That's the prediction that I'm going to wrap up with here on pod number 10 of Hockey 101.
I mean, it's interesting because the development team is kind of the most, like, not the most storied, but it is a storied team, right? A lot of influence, a lot of tradition, a lot of mystique that sort of surrounds it. And if we're going to flip everything, if we're going to take the table and just flip it upside down, teams that rely on that maybe find themselves in an interesting position if they can't find ways to bolster what they offer.
Guys, when I was running prospects, I want to say in 2001 or 2000, in 97 or 98, when the development team first started, they couldn't get all the best players from America. And a whole bunch of the best players from America were playing in prospects in Guelph and Toronto with all of the Ontario guys. And Jeff Jackson was the coach at that point in time. And he brought the development team to prospects. He divided the young team up into two. He supplemented with kids that they were looking to bring in the following year. And they put two development teams into prospects. Now, I can tell you, you know the numbers with prospects. Like 5,000 guys that went on to the CHL and 6,000 guys that went on to Division I hockey and 1,000 guys that went on to the NHL. I mean, the best players were there for the most point from Ontario and the United States. But the national development team doesn't come to a summer hockey tournament in Toronto. He was doing it because he was trying to protect his recruits and the players that he had already. I think we're going to enter into that kind of territory. We're going to see unique things that the development team is going to have to do to stay in existence. Now, I could be totally wrong, guys. But if the CHL keeps crushing it, the USA Hockey's going to have to pivot. We'll see.
I could be totally wrong, but I haven't been. So take that for what you will. That's the subtext, Bob. You won't say it, but that's why Dan and I are here. I might be wrong, but I haven't been so far.
We have not been so far. And I'll leave you with another one. And we've already said it today. If the NCAA just went younger, they would kill the CHL. And when I say kill the CHL, listen, the draft is going to be, the NHL draft is over time is going to be done out of the CHL. But if they went younger and had all of those players just transition over to the NCAA would be the feeder to the National Hockey League. No question about it. It would be no different than the USHL and the BCHL are feeders for the NCAA right now. It's sitting right in front of them. It's been sitting right in front of them for 25 years. And you know what? The teams in the NCAA, forget about Western Michigan this year and forget about a couple of other blips. The teams that are always in the mix to win the national championship, they're always in the Sweet 16 and they're always in the Frozen Four, are the ones that have all the elite hockey players. There's more elite hockey players out there to get. Go get them. Come up with a strategy. Do it. Yep. And you will be the supplier to the National Hockey League. That's all I got for tonight, guys.
I am going to close out my point of this with the most plausible solution to address this issue. It is what the NBA does. It is 1 year of NCAA eligible hockey playing before you can be drafted. Until the NHL makes that move, there is not a legal way to do this.
Dan, you don't know what you're talking about.
We've seen first of all, the guy shouts from across the border. This guy up in Canada, this is not U Sport. This is the NCAA. And if you have not seen the federal work that has gone into dismantling a lot of what the NCAA used to be when Teddy Roosevelt launched this thing to what it has become today, a lot of this dismantling is from the inability to make overarching decisions. And the biggest thing to remember is the NCAA is not going to make a decision for its smallest Division I sport. It's not going to. It's not going to fix its smallest Division I sports problem when it is not an issue for its moneymakers, for its non-moneymakers, for any other sport. It is going to.
Dan, you're so misguided. Okay. So I don't know much about the NBA, but the NBA used to have a league called the G League, right?
It still does.
Oh, but none of the top prospects are in the G League anymore, right?
There are still top prospects in the G League, and what they have to do is compete. You're proving my point. They have to compete for a year in the G League or overseas in professional competition for that 1 year to make up for that NCAA eligibility.
Your youth is showing.
He's so young.
Right,
he's so young, Bob.
Dan. So a couple years ago, before NIL really took place, the G League truly did have top end prospects in the G League. There's no top-end prospects in the G League. The NBA draft is happening tonight. I haven't followed it. I bet you there's nobody drafted in the top 15 picks from the G League. I bet you there's nobody drafted in the first round of the G League. You know why? Because these kids were making $100,000 in the G League because they didn't want to go to the NCAA and go to school and go to class, so they went to the G League. Now the thing is, they can collect $500,000 a year playing their 1 year of NCAA college basketball and then go to the NBA.
What I will argue, in the top 20 picks right now, yes, no G League, but there are 6 international professional athletes. China, France, Australia. Sure. There's 6 of them, and that's what I mean. It doesn't have to be the G League.
Hold on, Dan. They're not Americans going over to Europe to play. Okay, there are Europeans over there.
Right.
What's happening right now is that the G League has been decimated as far as prospects go, real true prospects, because the kids can make more money in NIL in the NCAA. Let's just drop it. We're a hockey show.
The issue is not the nil in this conversation. The issue is creating a pathway that has to involve the NCAA if you want the NCAA to get the best players.
The NCAA
can help out the best and help out the quickest is the NHL draft.
So the NCAA had a rule prior to this that you couldn't bring in anybody older than have a freshman older than 21 years of age. All of a sudden now they've got people that are older. They can listen. Forget about a rule. They could all sit in a room. They could hold on. They could all sit in a room and say, guys, you can do whatever you want. Okay? But it is in our best interest if all of us start to take a look at younger players who are NHL draft choices. Do what you want, guys. I don't care. Until the NCAA
coach has a guaranteed 10-year contract at every NCAA institution for hockey, it'll never happen.
Hey, something could happen here. Maybe the NCAA hockey schools have so much money, they're just going to buy all the CHL players. I don't know. That could happen. I don't think enough of them have that kind of money. But we'll find out. We're going to find out.
Yeah, and there's interesting data to talk about down the road and things like other sports utilizing the College Baseball World Series, a world where there is money being given into baseball in nil. There are schools raising tons of it, and meanwhile, 2 of the top 8 teams, one in the national championship game, Coastal Carolina, and the other, Murray State, making runs to national titles, right? Potentially.
They had a Pagula?
They didn't. And that's the thing. The no money wasn't there. They had a coach that mows the lawn at Murray State for his baseball team, an 800-seat stadium with chain link fencing.
Don't care.
Made it to the final 8. So
don't care.
Era of nil, there is still growth to be done without private equity. Get rid of it. Get it out of our game. And let's fix hockey once and for all. Vote against private equity.
Do you guys have anything else for me tonight?
Technically, I would like to say that I agree with Dan, but I will take the chance to clown on him for the next 3 days for being the youngest person in this group.
Gotcha.
But Dan makes some excellent points.
It's been an honor. Let's play our way down to the bottom of the ocean as hockey continues to not get better for those of us stateside.
Hey, but at least they're creating shareholder value, right?
Where can everybody find all this stuff, guys?
So they can find it at www.dankshow.com. That is where the spreadsheets will continue to be updated by Bob. That's where we'll be posting as much of the information as we can. If you're watching this on YouTube, the best thing to do there is to hit the subscribe button, and just to the right, there's a little bell. YouTube made it complicated. You can't just subscribe anymore. That doesn't mean anything. The bell is what gives you the alert when we post new information, whether it's shorts, whether it's teasers, whether it's recaps or full episodes. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. At @_Dan Show on social media. That is where you can see the graphics that get posted, the teasers, the recaps, the short form content that everybody loves these days after we break down these huge episodes. So that's where you can find us. www.dankshow.com. Official Dan K Show on YouTube, at @Dan K Show on social media. Stay up to date with the best name in junior hockey, and for the last year, a pretty great name in college hockey. When those numbers come in after a full year, I think we're all going to be pretty impressed by it.